Hey there everybody, this is Luke Johnson for Only Once, and today I'm going to be reviewing a live play on PokerStars. I want to review this hand that just happened. It was on the top left table. It goes open, 3-bet, 4-bet, call, 15%, small raise, actually just very standard raise sizing, not really small, and I'm not even sure what the sizing is, 30%, 28, 54. 25%, and shove, call, set over set is just a caller. If this was a 3-bet pot, it would not be a caller, and I would say deuces is too light to stack off with, most of the time at least. But in a 4-bet pot where you're starting the hand with approximately 3 SPR, set over set is just rather unfortunate, and you are going to try and find a way to go broke. Check raise, bet jam, I think is going to be pretty common. After you raise the flop, I expect bet jam to almost always be done. I'm not sure on the raise frequency on flop. You are 200 effective pre-flop and it is monotone. I'm not really sure how the flop is supposed to be played. I imagine there is a good amount of calling going on with deuces as well. But I think after you roll the raise, bet jam is just going to be the most common line. But I definitely don't think you're always supposed to raise deuces. But that being said, it's definitely going to happen a lot of the time. So yeah, anyway, let's what I can do actually is just review a few of the bigger hands. So I've only just started this sweat, if you will. So let's just go through a few of the big ones, and then we can start the actual live play review. So there was 5-3 versus 7-10. I'll try and not show the hands. Very small sizing, which I don't like. You can just go bigger for range here. So I think this is just excessively small. You can just bet bigger and still bet your entire range. So I think that you're under leveraging your range here, I think, by going the sizing. At least in my sims. Bets min raise now makes sense versus the big sizing. So essentially what's happening here is, because Berry's got excessively small, Linus has a very, 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 very wide continue range. So when you have a very wide continue range, you don't want to depolarize. You don't want to depolarize when your range is wide. You only want to depolarize when your range is tight and doing very well. So Linus is now sizing up to appreciate this, and then Berry min raises. So this all makes sense on the turn. Bet call, and then 5-3. Okay, so Linus's play is pretty standard, I think. 5-3 obviously very loose float on flop, but I think versus, again, just the tiny, tiny sizing. It just makes it in there. And Berry's play on the turn is obviously just kind of street poker. Which is not to say it's bad. Berry is... I've seen enough of Berry's street poker to kind of like trust him, if that makes sense. I've seen so many just hero cooldowns and being right. Or he's cooled down, been right that the guy was bluffing, but then he still lost the hand because the guy was bluffing with a better hand. That being said, he definitely has what seems to be a knack for just figuring out where he is in a hand. So when I say street poker, I don't mean that in like a condescending way or anything, because like I said, he's done so many street poker plays and been right that at some point you just say, okay, the guy knows what he's doing, and that's where I think Berry is, at least in my mind, is. He's done these plays so often and been right so often that I just kind of say, okay, he knows what he's doing. He has a different approach to almost everyone, but you know what? He's basically made it to the end of PLO, and he's trying to do the same in No Limit, so obviously you've got to give him credit. And this one, okay, let's see this one as well, and then we'll jump into the live play. So open 3 bets, call, check, call. Okay, this board's a high frequency C-bet for the big blind here. Linus stabs, and I actually don't expect Linus to be betting too often. So this is a clear difference between 6-max and heads up. If this was 6-max, obviously the button or whoever calls pre-flop in position gets to do a lot of stabbing for a small sizing. In heads up, that's not entirely the case, because the big blind actually does very well on this board. Half pot raise call, I think turns very standard by both players. Half pot is a pretty, well, just the normal sizing here. I don't mix my sizing. I think you could, if you want to, go a 1/3, 2/3. I go half pot only. Looks like Linus does the same, which is nice to see. And then you get I think this is half pot raise. Linus is calling 40 into 120. Bet call, and then shove, fold. Now, yeah, obviously the only sizing here is half pot, which is all in, and then Berry's probably going to be folding 90% versus this. Because essentially what you're doing on the turn is you're trying to leverage money in, and on a completely blank river, there is essentially no incentive to check raise the turn and then check call the river. Almost no incentive. Hence, there is going to be like a 10% check call range. So yeah, if you were to run a sim, even in 6 max, you would see a pretty similar thing where when you check raise the turn and then get a blank river, you are just going to be overfolding. So when you have people like playing what is it called, MDA poker, where they have like these mass database analysis spreadsheets where they try and get info on when population overfolds relative to PIO. It's pretty flawed information because sometimes PIO will just check fold 90%. So okay, so on the left table we have open raise call. Berry uses 5th pot. I think the 5th pot here is actually okay now. On the King 3 rainbow or King 5 rainbow, it's too small. You can just go bigger. Queen 5 deuce 2-tone is an okay situation where 5th pot is going to be a nice way to leverage your range here. You can bet range. I expect Berry's sizing here. There might be a small frequency of big sizing, but when you have 20% in your range, you can bet your entire range here. It's a nice sizing. Maybe he has a few big sizings in there as well. Linus goes B70 on the turn. Again, he's got a wide continue range on flop, so he has to be protecting his checkback range. If Berry was to go bigger on the flop, then Linus would be continuing a much tighter range, and then he could look to be depolarizing a bit. But that's not happening here when Berry bets only 5th pot on flop. Berry check calls turn with A7. I think it's going to be mixed. You're going to be sometimes betting and sometimes checking. If he did bet, he would bet 2/3. He would be using Linus's bet sizing for himself on the turn. And if you had a hand like 10-8 of hearts, you just always want to bet because you don't want to check call or check raise, really. But A7 is different, obviously, in the sense that it does have some showdown value to it. I like it. I think you're mostly betting this hand, but not always. King 8-5, quarter pot, or sorry, 5th pot now. Not now, it's been using it a few times. It's okay. I would go with... I think 5th pot is good, but I don't think you're actually betting your range here for the 5th pot. You have to find checks. Should expect to see either the 21 blinds or a 15 blind sizing. I prefer the 21 here. From Linus's shoes as a stab. He goes 15. Okay, it's going to be one of the two. I think I prefer 15 because you are just polarized to a king and a strong king, so I feel like it makes sense to go bigger. Both are good though. Like I said, it's either 15 or 21. That makes sense. Okay, so polarized to a king or exactly ace-8 with the 8 of spades. Sure. I guess there are going to be some pocket 9s in there as well, occasionally. In the right hand side here, I expect to see a big sizing and a small sizing here. So I would go with, I expect to see a 5 big blind and then a 20 big blind. Or a 6 big blind and the 20 big blind. Okay, so I think he's probably mixing 1/3 and big here. You do have quite the array of hands. You have a bunch of 5-6, 7-6, 7-8, 9. Well, 9-8 can go bigger, but those kind of third pairs, pocket 6s, pocket 8s, that want to go small and need protection. And then you do have just a bunch of 10s, jacks, 9-10 that can just start saying, okay, we're playing with a 3 SPR, let's just put money in. Or sorry, a 5 SPR, let's put money in. And they bet pot almost every time. On the turn, I think only one sizing is good here for 2/3, which he does, or B70. When I say 2/3, 3/4, I actually am just using them in the same sense. I don't think there's much difference between B66 and B75, so don't take too much note there if you are someone who has 66 or 75 as your hotkey. And now in river, just one sizing, just all in. You can't have a smaller one here. Bluffs are just going to be 8x, 6x, ace 4, ace deuce. Pretty natural. Jack 10 of hearts, that kind of stuff. Although Jack 10 of hearts is not great because you do block a lot of folds here. You would much sooner use a hand like ace 4. Although ace 4 doesn't get hit too often because I don't think it'd bet the flop that often. But I think if ace 4 did bet the flop, then it would always use the pure bet turn, pure jam river. Ace 4, non-spades. So if it had ace 4 of clubs, that would be a low frequency bet on flop, but then pure bet turn, pure bet river. I think Berry's bluff catches here are pretty natural as well. I think this hand does play fairly honestly. Wow, he takes a long time with 7-8 there. He really didn't think Linus was bluffing. I expect 7-8 to just be a very easy cooldown. Yeah, I would not be taking very long in Berry's shoes. I'm going to note this one as well because maybe I'm just kind of wonky. My opinion is not good here. Potentially it is just a bluff catch. Well, it definitely is a bluff catch in terms of the theory. Linus is definitely not showing anything worse. But in terms of the bluff catches, I would just snap this one off. I wouldn't even think twice. Maybe I'm just totally wrong though. Note that one. Look at it later. Linus's line, very standard. I don't think you're ever supposed to check turn or river in Linus's shoes here. I feel like yeah, you're just supposed to go, especially when you actually do play the kicker here. Your 9-8 does beat 8-6, so, and that's a pretty, 9-8 does beat 9-6. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, I think after Linus bets the flop, you are just supposed to bomb turn and bomb river. I don't think there's really any RNG involved here.